Okay, so I've got my setup here. Hopefully it's lit up well enough for people to see this. I got my zip tie in place ready. I got my felting needle here, scissors, brush, need them. I also added a dread bead to this too, just because sometimes it's nice to just have that dread bead to hold next to the dread, just to kind of see that it's, you know, the right amount of thickness as you're going along. With 6 ounces of hair, it really is a lot of hair, so it's more a matter of getting it condensed enough so that it can get inside the bead, or so that the bead can get around it. I got my hair set up here. I put a little tie of it in the middle just because I had to set it aside while I cleaned this table off. So I'm going to take that off here in a little bit, but to start with, I just want to show how I get it on the dowel here. I'm kind of just getting the tail end of this hair. Hopefully you can see that all right. And I'm going to wrap that around here. I got about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches of tail here that I'm going to just be overlapping like this. Hopefully you can see that okay, but essentially I'm just kind of looping it around that dowel there. And then I'm going to take my zip tie and sort of maneuver it around so that I can just sort of lock it into place. And I'm just going to lock it around the end of this loop that I've got here to hold it in place. And I'm going to pull it as tight as I can. I'm going to put some force into it. I don't want it pulling out. That would be a bad thing for making this dread. So I'm really going to try to, I might even, in the past I've even gotten like a pair of pliers to pull on it, but kind of learned that I didn't really need that. And so there, I've got it secured to the dowel. I might slide this up so you can see it a little closer. But you can see how I've got it around the dowel, and it can kind of slide up and down depending on how high I want it to be. And really that's the setup. I'm going to go ahead and take off this little pipe cleaner that I have in the middle, and I'll just let this bundle of hair kind of hang off of that dowel. And then in the next video I'll start making the dread with the felting needle. For that video, as I make this, it takes me about 2 to 3 hours, I think, typically to make a dreadlock, a full length dreadlock. I'm probably going to do like a time lapse. So what I'll probably do is do about 6 to 8 inches of this, and then I'll turn it into a time. I'll kind of back it off. You can see the technique, and then I'll back it off and I'll do a time lapse of the remaining length of the dread to try and shorten this video. And I'm hopeful that that can kind of make it something that people can still learn from, but not have to watch a super long video. Anyway, next video, I'll be using this felting needle, if I can get it off of here, to make this dreadlock. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get this dread started. I've got Ordinary Adventures playing in the background, and my daughter's eating a sandwich next to me, so forgive me for any cross sound or anything. As I get this started, I'm trying a couple things that are key points here. One is I don't want to just like go as fast as I can, because as this thing starts getting dreaded up, it starts firming up, and then it will start cutting the hair. So I really have to kind of pay attention to how easily it's going in, and I'm trying to hit it from all angles. These felting needles, they have like little barbs on them that grab the hair, and so each time I put it through, it's grabbing, you know, between, I don't know, about 6 to 8 hairs, and it's just put them through. I also don't want to shove it all the way through if I can help it, because that's more likely to cut the hairs. And again, like, I don't want to cut this dread in half. One of the first dreads I did, I actually did it too much in one spot, and I kind of cut the dread in half. The other part that is important to mention too is, like, as I start this dread, the there's a little bit of a tail here that's overlapping, and so I'm kind of trying to work that in. So like this first inch and a half here or so is the end of that tail that's wrapped around, and I'm just trying to work that into the dread. Ultimately, that gets sort of brushed out as I glue the dread down. But I'm just trying to work this from all angles, trying to dread this up, coming up from underneath, and hopefully you can see it, but it's just dragging a little bit of hair at a time, 6 to 8 hairs up through the side, and you can kind of see it. It sort of gets this like fuzzy look. This hair part here is kind of popping up. As I start this, I'll pull it tight occasionally, but it's just dragging hairs a little bit of the way through, kind of tangling it up. Another key point here that I should know is, like, I can actually feel with my hand that is grabbing the dread right here, I can actually feel a couple of the hairs pulling each time I go through with this. And so I don't want to grab it so tight, because then what it does is the tension, again, will cut the hair. So I kind of have to have a medium to light handle on the dread. I'm just trying to work it up through there. And you can kind of see that it's slowly just getting tangled up. I know you can kind of only see the top right now. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and work on this, and then I'll come back here in a little bit with this video. Like I mentioned, I'm probably going to just sort of do about 6 or 8 inches of this in slow-mo, normal mode, so I can talk through some of the finer points of how I do this. And then I'll probably just do a time-lapse video to kind of just demonstrate how it all comes together for the full length of the dread. Okay, so I've just been working on this for a couple more minutes, and I can already tell it's kind of getting balled up here in just like this first inch. I always feel like the first inch of these things is kind of the more difficult to get started. And I've mostly been going through on this one side. I need to kind of hit it from underneath more. Hopefully you can kind of see that this sort of, as it's dragging hair up through there, it's sort of kind of fuzzing up. And I think there's part of this process that you're just going to have to try it to kind of get a feel for it. It's kind of difficult to explain how this works, or so I'm finding out as I'm making this video. So right now, this area right here that's sort of getting pushed up is that tail that I was talking about. And so that won't even exist. You can see down here that tail has ended. And so I'm just trying to kind of work that area in, even though a lot of that area is going to get brushed out as I glue this on, just because of the way that I was gluing it on. Again, this is the area where this first inch or so, it's getting pretty firm in here. I'm having to press a little harder now to get through it. So I really want to be careful how hard I press, because like I said earlier, it'll cut that hair through. But anyway, I can kind of grab this with my other hand. Hopefully that's still in the video. And I'm just kind of trying to get all sides. Apologies, I've got Ordinary Adventures on in the background, so they are in Hong Kong right now at Disney, or at least they were when I made this video. And at some point, like, I'm only going to press so hard into this, because again, my focus is on not wanting to cut through this dread. when I did cut through a dread, I was like halfway done with it, so it was really a waste of like an hour and a half or 2 hours of dread making, but it was sort of a trial run anyway. And I just kind of kept on going in one spot. If you keep going in one spot, you probably will slice right through the dread. Eventually, it will just cut through all the hair. So I'm kind of take a look at what I have right now, and I'll do this a lot to kind of just keep that dread compact, especially as I'm starting the dread out, just because that tail has really doubled up on the thickness of it right up here. Like I said, some of that will get worked out as I brush it out and get it ready for gluing on. But I think you can start to see that this area from about here up is really starting to get compacted. The rest of this thing is all bushed out right here, so you can really see how it's starting to form here as I do this. This method too is really resilient because like if I keep moving down the dread with the felting needle, and then I come back, maybe there's an area up here that needs to be, you know, tangled up a bit more, hit with the felting needle more, then it's pretty resilient. I can just kind of go back to that area and try to push the fuzz through it. So like this area right here is an example. I'm going to try to just push those hairs up through. Hopefully you can see that. I think it's pretty difficult to see some of this in the video, but hopefully it's just kind of pushing these hairs up through here. I'm trying to feel them pull. I can just feel them pulling slightly in my hand that's holding the dreadlock up. And I'm creating sort of a fuzzy side to this dread. Essentially, this fuzzy area that I'm creating right here from pushing up through it is what I'm trying to do on all sides of the dread. Kind of starting to move along pretty good now. You can really feel the difference in this part that I started and this brand new part that I just kind of started moving to down here. Trying to keep that felting needle moving. It is cutting some hair, especially if I'm having to really push it through fast. I just have to be careful not to do it too much. And then once I get that all fuzzed up, I kind of come back, tighten it down like this, kind of take a look at it. Make sure it's kind of maintaining that form that I want. So that's kind of where I'm at so far. Now, like this section's pretty good. From here to here, I really just came up towards the camera with the felting needle. So now I'm gonna go back down through it. Just kind of doing the reverse. I try to think of these dreads as though they have like 4 sides. So in other words, I start from maybe the bottom and come up through like I just did earlier, you know, and then all of that fuzz that came up through, I kind of try to push it back through the other way. So you can't see it really right now, but right now on the bottom of this dread, that fuzz is kind of going the other way. And so I'm just kind of going through it. I'm moving kind of fast right here. As long as it's not cutting the hair, I'm good. I just don't want to move so fast that I'm chopping the hair. And it's not the end of the world if you do chop a couple hairs, but you just don't want to chop, a lot of them, because obviously it will cut the dread in half. Okay, so I spent some time going down. Now I'm kind of coming in from one side. You can kind of see how this thing is getting really tangled and matted up. Again, I can feel the hairs pulling sort of out of my hand that's holding the dread. And as you try one of these, you'll really feel like you'll be able to feel the difference between pulling hair and cutting hair. And so I've hit about 3 sides to this little maybe 2 or 3 inch section that I'm doing right now. So I really need to put this felting needle in my other hand and kind of come through that other side. And if there's areas that look like they could use a little bit more, then you just kind of go back to them. And it's totally fine to not even have to send those needles all the way through. Sometimes I just push them about halfway through. You just feel them kind of grab and drag those hairs through. And then as I do that, I can feel them pulling out of my hand that's holding the dread. And so that's looking pretty good. I need to come in from this side now. And the other thing I can do to kind of shape this thing is I can kind of move it around, manipulate it. But you can really see how this thing is starting to shape up here. This particular dread, I really want this one to look really good because it's the most visible of all of Tarful's dread. It's going to be sitting right on the top of his head, so I want it to be nice and thick. I want it to fill up those beads, and I really want it to just be a good solid dread all the way from top to bottom. Anyway, this is looking really good. I've got maybe a 4 or 5 inch section here that's just about finished. I might do one more section like this before I hit the time lapse. Kind of see it fuzzing up again. You can also just come in at different angles too. It doesn't have to always be, at a lateral angle. The point is I'm just grabbing hairs, pulling them through multiple directions, trying to tie them up, tangle them up, matting is kind of the way to do it. I'm left-handed, so I have a tendency to spend more time with my left, but it's good to switch hands in this. Just like, you don't want to spend too much time with one hand or too much time going through one side. Anyway, that is looking pretty good. I'm really having to start to jam those needles through there now, so I think what I'm going to do is move down to another 2-3 inch section, go through that, and then I will probably just move to a time-lapse video for the rest of this. Anyway, hopefully this is helping, but I'm going to take a little break here, and I'll come back with the next section here shortly. Just kind of, you can really see how it really holds too. I mean, all of this is splaying out, but this is just holding very firm here. This tail right here, ultimately what will happen is when I glue it down, I'll put another zip tie around this area, and then this will end up getting just brushed out. I try, at least whatever part of it doesn't get worked into the dread. And so really, like, from here down is the dread that will be actually visible, whereas the rest of it will probably, most of it will get gummed up with glue. But anyway, hopefully you can see that good. Take a look at the video here. You can kind of see how that's working right there. And then if I put the bead up next to it, you can kind of see that that's going to be plenty enough to fill out that dread bead. And it feels very solid right now. In fact, one of the concerns with such a thick, firm dread is, you know, how it's going to move. When we put heat on it with some steam, it has a tendency to loosen up and kind of lock wherever you want it to fall. But probably have a video for that at some point in the future. But anyway, dread bead next to the dread. I'll probably do one more section, like I said, and then I'll come back with some time-lapse video to kind of show you the full-length dread. Okay, all right, I'm gonna do one more section, and then I'll probably just go to a time-lapse. One of the things that I was gonna talk about that I forgot to talk about was why I like this particular system of securing the dread. You certainly don't have to do this, but I like being able to clamp these on. I don't know if you can even see what I'm pointing at. Yep. Because this position that I'm in is sort of a good position to be doing this, so it's comfortable. I really like to be able to move this though, because as I'm working my way down the dread, it's nice to be able to take this platform, pull the clamps off, and slide it further that way on the table. And so that's one of the things that I do like about this setup here. I was doing this in the garage at first, and I was like, man, this is standing up and doing this for a couple hours is kind of a pain. So where I'm at right now, I get to just sit down, turn the TV on, and do it. So I would definitely encourage, like, if you're working on a project like this, find somewhere where it's comfortable to sit down. Anyway, there's not a whole, I feel like I've kind of covered everything in terms of what it takes to make these dreads and what to look for. Some of this definitely is just starting one, doing a test one, and getting a feel for it yourself. You can see right now I'm just sort of moving faster because I feel like I've gotten a feel for, you know, the difference between cutting and dragging the hairs through the bundle. And so I can move a little bit faster. And I think this is probably more like the pace that I'm able to do one of these in a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours probably. That pace that I was moving before as I was starting the dread and starting to make this video, I think that pace probably would have taken me quite a bit longer to make it. It's a pretty daunting task making 10 dreads for a costume when you're in an uncomfortable position and you're just starting out. And so I would really encourage finding a comfortable spot to do this, where you can do a little bit, take a break, do a little bit, take a break. You know, as you get a couple done, you know, you kind of can just start to get a little bit of momentum in terms of your ability to make them. I would not say that this isn't like a difficult task. I think the hard part is just knowing what to look for and knowing what to feel as you're making it. Hopefully that's still on the video there. Yeah. And it gets a little firmer here, and so I have to kind of slow down and make sure it's grabbing hair, not cutting hair. And for the purpose of this video, like I've mentioned a couple times already, I'm really just trying to give everyone who watches this a sense for how to get this thing started. You know, I'm probably 8 or 9 inches into this dread creation, and after this part of this clip of the video, I'm planning on just putting it on a time lapse and really just finishing the dread. You can see kind of this fuzz that I'm drumming up here that I've already mentioned before. Trying really hard not to stay in one spot, just kind of moving that around. Really trying to focus on not going all the way through the dread, but instead just barely poking those needles out the other side. I think more than anything, what starts to cut the hair is when you're going all the way through with like full force. And honestly, I'm pretty close to moving on to the next section here, so I'll probably hit the time-lapse video here shortly. But you can kind of see where I'm going here, see the technique I'm using, the speed that I'm going. You can see that's a good start to this dread. I'm pretty happy with that. As I get further down the dread, I like to kind of twist this too and see where I'm at with the underside of this. Most of these, I don't get quite as good of a dread on this side of them, just because I can't see it. So I'll turn it a little bit and just try to go through it as I turn it to make sure that I'm getting that fuzz up on that bottom side of this. The further up you are on the dread, the more difficult it is to see that underside of this. But you can always go back through. You can always turn this thing over and go back through and just start poking through until you get that fuzziness on it, and then you're good to go. So I turned it one way there, and now I'm gonna turn it back the other way and get a sense for it. See, there's some straight stuff in here. So what I'm gonna do is try to drag some of it through one way, and then I'm gonna come up the other way, and it's firmed up quite a bit, so I'm going to be really careful right here not to go too hard, because again, I just want to get the right look here. I know it's already dreaded up enough, it's not going to come apart, but again, I want it to have a kind of a uniform look about it. Some of this stuff is really firmed up here, and so I'm just barely poking those needles through to try and get that fuzz on the outside, just to give it the right look. And so I think that's good. I think that's well, I don't know, let's get a measuring device here and see how far I've done that. So that's just to start that dread. That's about 7 inches, 8 inches of dread, 7 for sure. And I can actually feel too, like feel where that thing is firmed up. I mean, it's really solid all the way down to where my thumb is right here. So that's about 7 inches. And then thickness wise, I've got an inch, maybe even a little more than an inch of thickness, which is totally fine. Anyway, that's the start of the video. The next clip will probably be just a video of me time-lapsed, finishing this thing off. And so it may be a couple of those time lapses over the course of the next couple hours as I finish this. My hope is to get it glued on the mask tonight, and then get that mask to a point where it needs to be punched. But anyway, that's the start of how to make a dread. Feel free to put comments below, or give me a shout out on Wookiee Builders if this video helped you learn how to make the dreads. This is for me, this method represented a far easier way than the backcombing method that I've used on previous costumes. while I didn't worry about backcombing, cutting hair and stuff, and there's certainly some worry while using the felting needle, if you kind of learn how to do it, learn how to feel your way through it, you can get it just right, and it looks, in my opinion, it looks a lot better than the old dreadlocks. So anyway, that's it. I'll move to the time lapse, and then uh, we'll just kind of wrap up this video as I get to the end. All right, so I got this dread done. When I was doing the time lapse, my external battery ran out of juice, and so I didn't get to finish the time lapse, but you can see the end of the dread here. Anyway, this is a real nice dread. I really worked it a little bit more than I did some of the other ones, so I think it'll be a good candidate for that top dread that's probably the most visible. But anyway, I'm ready to take all this downstairs and get this glued on. But I just wanted to show you guys kind of the finished product. You can see how stiff these dreads are. You know, I just have one finger holding it here, and it's, you know, I mean, I could certainly bend it, but it really needs a steam treatment to really kind of loosen it up and give it sort of a natural movement. But anyway, this is going to wrap up this dread making video, and hope everybody enjoyed it, and hit the like button, and
You're done.
that is a wrap on this one.